framework. I like that. That also makes my job easier because some of my research results have been already explained by Dr. Scott. And what I can do now is probably to refresh or enhance your memory, also add a little bit more insights. Hong Kong water governance, to me, this is absolutely, you need to look into a bigger framework, which we all know what made Hong Kong special, one country, two systems. I thought it's going to be a lot of a public in crowd, so I made something Water 101 for them. And for the experts here, this is no need to explain. 2 drops for all. And then for China, this is where we are. China is one of the 13 most water-scarce countries in the world. And Hong Kong rely on China, the Dongjiang water, for 70 to 80% of our freshwater supply. That's the overall picture we need to see. How do we get there? So start from Hong Kong. When the British government started Hong Kong in 1841, Hong Kong was primarily a small, tiny fishing village with very few people. So over more than 100 years development, Hong Kong hadn't started from water dependence. It is started from the population growth. And if you look into the water development, it's clearly associated with the population growth. And this is the primary drive of our waterworks and our water supply system. It is first wave of waterwork expansion associated with the first time when our population doubled size in 10 years. Second wave, pretty much the same. And then the third wave, we get into the water bottleneck. Because in these 10 decades, in these 3 decades, from the 1950s to the 1980s, every 10 years, Hong Kong add 1 million people. That's clearly stretched our ability of supplying water locally. And it is here the Guangdong Hong Kong water supply came into the picture. And looking forward, Dr. Scott already mentioned, by the year 2041, we will have roughly about 1 million people add on, and the Government Statistics Bureau's data is 1.5 million. That will further stretch what we are now already very dependent water supply, but nevertheless, if we look into our water roads, it is started from self-sufficient to battle through the bottleneck. And in battle through the bottleneck time, Hong Kong also made a lot of innovations to water solution, that including the reservoirs in the sea, and Singapore came to that solution 40 years later. And also we have made seawater usage become a unique feature of Hong Kong. We are now still the only one city in the world to have a dual flush system. And we actually had the first biggest desalination plant. However, it ended up in a different fate. It became a supporting factor to Singapore's solution, but our first desalination factory was dismantled in the 1990s. And now we are entering into the dependency. Going further, even the dependency will come to a bottleneck itself, because climate change already affected the water supply system in Dongjiang. I hope our China colleagues can add something here. I saw some data, and the fact of the impact is actually significant. Now, this water road, how do we get into that? Population obviously is the case. But the Dongsheng project, which played a primary and a very important role to Hong Kong, how does it start to develop? The insight of this Dongsheng project would give us some feeling and some understanding on Hong Kong's water governance issue. Eventually, essentially, it's not a management issue. It's actually political. And if we look into the Shenzhen Reservoir, which is the key element of the Dongshan project. Shenzhen Reservoir wasn't built for supplying the water to Hong Kong. It was the product of Great Leap Forward, a political movement of China. And at the time, to make this responding to the central government's requirements of making Great Leap Forward in agriculture sector, Guangdong was one of the provinces actually made a lot of water works in that period of time. And the Hong Kong Reservoir was built under such a big political atmosphere within 100 days and using pretty much bare hands to make it. After the Hong Kong Reservoir built up, British government over this side saw the chance because we were making the water bottlenecks. We don't have enough resource to supply our fresh water. And then British government initiated a talk to try to negotiate with the Shenzhen, then called Bao'an County Authority, to say whether we could buy some water from you. And this initiated talk actually had a very good response from the other side of the border. And the Bao'an County chief, Mr. Li Fuling, this man was kind of forgotten by history, but I think he deserves a place in history about how Hong Kong eventually developed and also the one country, two systems, how could it be put into practice. This party secretary actually saw this as a good way to make sure to resolve some of the local problems, which is the refugees fleeing away across the border. And he thought if we can make some living for the people on the other side of the border that's comparable to Hong Kong, then people would be happier to stay. That will also help to bring the money that are needed for the new establishment of China and also the development. So the party secretary responded positively and he reported to his high authority. And the response from the central government, provincial government, were also very positive and supportive. That's how we started the negotiation. In that year, after the reservoir was built, 6 rounds of negotiation was done. And towards the end of the year, the first water supply agreement was signed. That was pretty much a commercial contract to sell water to Hong Kong on the cost. And at the time, the cost of itself is actually significant to the foreign currency that Chinese government needed for the use of their socialism development. And the contract signed then wasn't called Dongshan Water Supply Agreement. It was backdated later on once the actual Dongshan project was built. Then that contract was regarded as the first. So in this time, after the Shenzhen Reservoir was built, Dongshan project came into the picture because of a major disaster. That was a consecutive drought happened in the 1962 to 1963. And in the continuous 3 years, Hong Kong was under extreme water rationing because we don't have any rainfall. And the extreme water rationing hit Hong Kong at the time, lasted for 1 year, that every 4 days we have water supply for only 4 hours. That lasted for the entire year. And at the same time, actually, Singapore suffered the same thing too. And after that, then Hong Kong made clear some of the business communities and the patriotic society. Also, they are very active underground Communist Party's member here, made a plea to the central government to say, to save Hong Kong people lift them out of this misery, we really need to have more water from China. And then it was the British government, colonial government, initiated a memoir to actually propose, design and build and construct a pipe work to link Dongjiang directly to the Shenzhen Reservoir that can guarantee Shenzhen Reservoir always have water to supply to Hong Kong. This memoir was reported to the Guangdong provincial government, and the former Premier Zhou Enlai was in Guangzhou at that time when he saw this, and he immediately made decisions that we are going to do it. We're going to design, build, and shoulder the financial burden. So we don't need the British government to put anything. And that's when this Dongshan project came into the picture. So once the decision was made, Dongshan project was built within 1 year. And in 1965, it was officially started to supply water to Hong Kong. After the Dongshan project was built, in the next 20 years, from the middle of the 70s to the middle of the 90s, Dongshan project actually went through 3 major expansions. These 3 major expansions associated with Hong Kong industry moving north, and also the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone established. Later on, it was actually the Sino-British Joint Declaration came into the picture, and then China's open door policy all happened in that period of time. And the Dongshan project eventually became a lifeline not only for Hong Kong, but also for PRD's development, especially Shenzhen and Dongguan. Up to date, Dongshan project supply 1/3 of the water to Hong Kong, 2/3 is actually for China, for Shenzhen and Dongguan. So why Dongshan project could happen like that? In fact, it is the first water diversion project of China. So the now north to south to north diversion wasn't the original first one. Dongshan project was the one. And this was because it satisfies both China and British government's core interests. Why do I say so? Chinese Communist Party, before they had established China, they already figured out their policy towards Hong Kong and Macau, which is called 八次方针, 8 words policy, long-term planning and full utilization. This had been the core of its policy. And following this 八次方针, there is a timetable. We're going to claim Hong Kong and Macau back, but not immediately. We need to wait until we see the timing is correct. So for that, at this old time when China was just established and under the surge of the international ILS led by US government, this policy to maintain Hong Kong's prosperity and stability was actually one of the core interests of Chinese Communist Party. And for British government, nonetheless speaking, it had been in Hong Kong more than a century, so it had a lot of business, economic, and also military interest to serve for the British government as their Far East port. And under that political situation, both governments actually embraced the water dependency before and after the handover. It served the longer-term purpose. And in the handover negotiation, this becomes even more apparent. During this negotiation, British government at the beginning was actually stood pretty strong. They didn't want to give up Hong Kong. They tried everything trying to defend Hong Kong. But the bottleneck, when they faced this hard rock, when Deng Xiaoping said, regardless what, we're going to reclaim Hong Kong back. Either we claim it back peacefully or use another form. And then Mrs. Thatcher at the moment asked her cabinet to search out, is it possible to defend Hong Kong? And then the report came back to say, actually impossible to defend it because Chinese government didn't even need to use military force. They could just simply turn off the water tap. That's done. And the reason is because at that time, 99% of Hong Kong's local water storage capacity was actually located in the leased land, New Territory. And by that, this fact you can see from Thatcher's memoir, and that time British government backed off, and then the joint declaration was signed. And after that, you see the picture Scott showed you, our water supply just flipped the side. The local and the Dongjiang just turned the other way around. Now, how do we manage it? TWM, Scott already explained it, so I wouldn't go into details about it. I will just show a little bit more insight about how do we actually follow this strategy. It was issued in the year 2008, and how do we do about it? First of all, is to see we have local capacity. We build a lot of reservoirs. Our local capacity actually is much greater than that of Singapore. But our local capacity seemed like not be fully utilized. We can see the precipitation through the years is pretty much unchanged. If we put a line before and after the handover, we can see after the handovers, the rainfall was actually a little bit more than before. And our local water catchment capacity is in the red line. It had been increased all the way through until the early 80s. All of our reservoirs built before the early 80s. And our catchment capacity is also increasing as to follow our capacity. However, after the joint declaration, our capacity seemed like never be able to capture so much water that was given by the heaven. And even in the historical high year of 1997, that was the highest rainfall we have recorded in the history. But that year, our water catchment locally is actually pretty low. So we can see the green bar is Tongjiang water supply. Then that explains why. Because we have another source, it is guaranteed. And then the water purchase. If you think treat water as a commodity can solve every problem, then there's a cost here too. We are now under the so-called turnkey purchase agreement, which is every year you pay a fixed amount of money for the entitlement of a fixed amount of water. But if we have a lot of rainfall, then those water no longer transferred into Hong Kong. And in the past 7 years, what we did is actually paid for 7 years money, but in the water quantity is actually only 6 years. In other words, we are paying a very high premium to secure our water supply. Whether that is a wise way to go, economically justified, needs to be further explored. Water usage trend. Scott also put a picture there, and this is the picture. What I want to remind you is, looks like we did something to reduce our freshwater usage, the blue bar. But the scale is so small, if you put this scale into percentage time, the saving of freshwater is very minimal. It's just about 1% also. However, our seawater usage continuously increasing, and the seawater being viewed as a free resource. Is it true? Obviously it's not. And the attitudes and the behaviors of our people is also problematic. This was the survey done by Water Supplies Department in year 2012. We forgot our water rationing the last time was only just like 30-something years ago. Now if you ask people, do they still remember? Younger people would look at you and say, have we ever? And now, the water consumption pattern, we are running into kind of a small cell family. The less people, the higher the per capita water usage. And we also have the difference of private housing and public housing. Private house consumes more. We have helper, similarly to Singapore. If the families with helpers, it seems like consume more. And our conservation attitudes, willingness is very high, but take action is actually less than half. Kind of like today, we have a lot of people signed up, but showed up, it's only less than half. How come we use so much water while we are actually water scarce like Singapore? And when I analyze the daily water usage of Hong Kong people, you can see the pie chart is the freshwater usage divided by how much they use for what purpose. Nearly half used for shower. And if we use the seawater, put seawater into the picture, seawater is in Hong Kong is for toilet flushing. It will be another nearly half of the total water, seawater and freshwater add up together. So if we put this all into a picture, The conclusion is Hong Kong people use almost 2/3 of the water every day to shower and go to the toilet. What kind of lifestyle that is? And I say Hong Kong people, bathroom goers? So why can we do that? The water fee, water tariffs is one of the reasons. It may not be the only reason, but it's definitely one of the reasons. We can see our water tariff stands for nearly 20 years not reviewed. But Dongjiang Water actually every year now is increasing the price and increasing sharply. Year 2003 is the SARS time. That year, all the water tariffs are waived to battle the SARS. And obviously, the water tariffs do not reflect the actual resource value. And we have subsidized, Scott showed this, I wouldn't talk more. Basically, all of our subsidized and our costs recovered cannot make it break even. Water supply department every year running into deficit. And we have subsidized to freshwater more than 60%, seawater 100% supply and treatment. Seawater is not a free supplement, and this is how much seawater costs, my calculation. It is not a free lunch, but lots of people in Hong Kong would think seawater is free because it costs nothing to get it out of the sea. That's not true. You need to pump it. And also you need to treat it. Truth of seawater in Hong Kong is we don't even measure how much we use it. You can go to the toilet, press it once, press it 10, makes no difference in your water bill because there is no measurement. And we have a supply and sewer service all for free. And we don't have operating accounts individually or jointly to combine seawater and freshwater together. I can only estimate based on the information I got. Roughly 30% of what it costs to supply freshwater would be used to supply seawater. And also we have energy costs. Water supply department and drainage department actually use more than 30% of the total Hong Kong government's electricity bill. So you can say water for power. Here is not that true, but power for water, definitely one of the cases. This is only the government bill, not considering the commercial and the residential. About the seawater, the truth I'm saying we're not clear. We don't actually know. The economic side of it, we're not clear. We don't know. So by looking at that, in Hong Kong, under the total water management strategy, we actually compromised our principles of users pay and polluters pay. We don't pay anything for our sewers treatment. Only for those supplied by freshwater, they will be charged. And now, refresh this picture, how sustainable that could be. And we need to understand what happened in PRD. PRD is one of the powerhouses of Chinese economy with all these facts. The facts told us PRD is already up to its limit. And going further, environmentally and land, space, population, etc., PRD itself facing sustainability issue. However, PRD's perspectives in the 2020 that was agreed and issued by the National Central Government, NDRC. This is the overall development picture governs PRD's development, which is called 5 integration plans. And the core of these 5 integration plans is going to make megacity clusters and to bundle them together, and then with the new special administrative regions as the growth engine. And these 3 new areas were pretty hot in the past years. And in a graphic format, to see what are these 5 integrated plans, this is pretty much the show. So, this one is not quite working. The megacity clusters is going to group the 9 cities of PRD, 3 of them surrounding Guangzhou, Zhaoqing, Foshan, into one. And then Shenzhen, Dongguan, Huizhou, another, then Xiamen and others. So Hong Kong is key. These three major city clusters are going to be linked together by all of these the infrastructures of the physical facilities and the social service facilities, and the green ring is about the environmental development. All of these are planned, although Hong Kong is not in there, but as a part of the region, we cannot escape from the regional development consequences, nor that we shouldn't share the products and the benefits of it. Not only inland, it had been planned and developed in that way, but also the ocean. So the ocean development, this is the middle circle, because Hong Kong and Macau in there, this is called cooperative zone. The other two zones are the development zones, and the Chinese government has the say and also the power to do what they are going to do. And in there, I just listed something along this line, which Daya Bay is roughly here. There will be a so-called ecologically friendly, heavy petrochemical production center, which I'm trying to figure out what does that mean. And I just cannot put ecologically friendly and petrochemical heavy industry together. Now, looking into these 9 cities of PRD, their positioning in year 2020, what are they going to be? Previously, they were all manufacturing based. That's called a word factory. After repositioning, it's going to be still 7 out of 9 manufacturing based, but it will be upgraded, something called like a world-class high-tech manufacturing center, something called like a world-class, all of them are basically world-class or advanced technology, but the nature of it, still manufacturing. 2 of them will become the service center. Hong Kong is here. And then the future of one water, 2 systems. Right now, we're pretty much under one water, 2 systems. We have the say, we have the contract. But then once PRD is into their development, the competition to water in terms of quantity and quality, both will increase. And we cannot sag along to say, got nothing to do with us. If you see this development picture, seems like a bit scary, I'm sure, and this news will make you feel the urgency. This is the new chief of the Guangdong provincial government, Mr. Hu Chenghua. After 1 year move to central government, he came to Guangdong. First thing he did was actually to look into this integrated development plan and make his new slogan. And the new slogan, one is development is absolute truth. So, non-disputable. Based on that, and he said, not only we need to follow the previous government line to say in the 4 years, start from year 2011, we need to make significant progress into the integrated development. But also, he raised a new goal. Start from year 2013, he wished to make this 9 years great leap forward. In another way, it's kind of like a hard target. Deliver it, Carters. And you see, this was a picture you saw before from Scott's presentation. That's our work previously. The Guangdong water systems quality, PRD, is already pretty much damaged. Going further, the relocation of these industries in PRD was the Guangdong government policy issued in year 2008. And this is to say, by relocate those industries clustered in PRD to the undeveloped northeast west rings of Guangdong, that could make the total provincial development more even and more advanced, and also reduce the environmental pressure of PRD. And this policy called the Tenglong Huanniao industrial relocation, where they are going is actually to relocate to mostly water resources area. It's the upstreams of rivers. because it's government policy-driven activity, it's scaling up really fast and also moving very fast. Many of the environmental hurdles set up to force the industry not to relocate with the pollution were not actually working, because the speed and also the governance and the implementation, etc. issue, what we see now is actually the pollution relocated, upgrade didn't follow. This is the industry relocation parks, and that's my Dongjiang River trip. One of those charts quite alarming to the central government. All of those black dots are the industry relocation parks. They are the provincially certified and recognized. They were supposed to be the highest standard in terms of environmental concern and protection. However, by the end of the year 2011, when I finished my Dongjiang River inspection, they are, by the way, Dongjiang, most of them relocated in one of the county, Heyuan. By the end of 2011, 24 out of the 36 provincial industrial relocation parks do not have wastewater treatment facilities. And now the situation, I believe, improved, but how much and actually does it work? I'm not sure. I hope they actually improve. The picture I took at that time, Dongjiang Stream, that is the Ganliu Dongjiang Stream, main stream. This is some kind of discharge directly into the Dongjiang River outside of the nationally recognized model industrial relocation park. And I saw this discharge looks not normal. Now, looking for the quality of all of those water systems. And this is the east, the blue bar is the East River, and red bar is the North River, Dongjiang. The East River is the green bar. This is the water quality. We see in year 2007, the water quality was pretty poor. That time, and it was going through the battle of the pollution. Then central government and the provincial government put lots of effort. After some years, it showed improvement, and then start to deteriorate again. However, year 2012, for Dongjiang, looks like we have significant improvement, same as Xijiang. But year 2012, the measurement standard for this assessment actually changed, and two of the key parameters were excluded. These two parameters, one is the coliforms, the other one is the total nitrogen. Without these two, how can I compare the water quality of this year with the previous year? I'm scratching my head. Now, supply future outlook, quantity-wise, as we see previously, all of this allocated, this is entitlement of Dongjiang water. And 6 cities share Dongjiang water, governed by Dongjiang Water Allocation Agreement, issued by the central government. And this was supposed to be the cap. Nobody can exceed. By year 2012, we can see some of them already exceeded or close to exceeded this amount. Outlook in year 2015, all of them will be except Hong Kong. Guangzhou's case is different because Guangzhou is not the entire of the Guangzhou city. It's only for this district called Zhengcheng. Zhengcheng is a fast development area of Guangzhou. It will become another, they call it, growth pole for Guangzhou economy. And by the year 2020, even though this is only supply for one district, it's not going to be enough. And we can see if the integrated development plan actually worked, year 2020, all of the cities in our neighborhood would not have enough water. Water shortage would appear everywhere, and Hong Kong will meet our bottleneck too. This is what we are allowed for now. The contract is signed until year 2030. We're going to reach this by forecasting by year 2020. And then that seems like we're going to facing water shortage as well. It's just a little bit behind the speed of Guangdong. Then every city seeing these trends are also doing their works. All of this work still tapped into Dongjiang, Xijiang, Beijiang, and also tributaries to all of those main rivers. And these tap into the Dongjiang, not really governed by this water allocation plan. And I'm not sure if we all think of the solution is to divert water. I don't have it here. I go further, dilute it into my place. How sustainable this can be as a region, as a city, or as a nation. 3 red lines issued by the central government trying to battle through this situation, which set the total water consumption, the cap, and the pollution cap, also the efficiency of using it. So all of these are not apparently really enforced. Now, Hong Kong and the PRD, we are the key to their success. The PRD is our key to success. It's also going to be our undoing because our investments, still, majority of the PRD investment come from Hong Kong. So fact speaks for itself. Hong Kong is vulnerable, needs to act fast. And then if you know, 3 days ago, central government issued a white paper called One Country, Two Systems, and its implementation in Hong Kong that sent further alarm politically. And I wrote my report last year. I thought it was just a coincidence today we hit this right timing. Now, the question for all of us to consider is one water, two systems. Where is the end? It's going to be the end. How should we go forward from here now? So that's our old time slogan, still works now. And all my water report, if you're interested, you can download from our website. Thank you very much.